Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. If you are just joining us, go ahead and type in the chat where you're tuning in from. We'd like to see where people are here from. Hello, Shanna. All right, we got someone from Virginia, Michigan. Awesome. Ohio, Des Moines, Denver, where I am. Oh, hi, Doris. Austin, Texas, New York, Michigan. Oh.
I'm looking for my Pennsylvania people. I haven't seen that many.
Well, I saw a one Doris H from Pennsylvania, if that counts. Blue Ridge, Georgia. Hi, Tom. Katy, Texas. Wow. Northwest Ohio, Massachusetts. Well, it's great to see you all. Thank you all for joining today. We're going to give it maybe 1 to 2 more minutes, and then we're going to jump into the webinar, just giving people enough time to join here. Ankeny, Iowa. I used to live in Ames. I went to school in Ames. Louisiana, Michigan, California. Oh, and there's Jim. Rainy Seattle. Hopefully it'll start warming up here soon.
It's rainy here today.
Is it?
Like Seattle, yeah.
Yeah, dang. That's where I usually spend the holidays, in Seattle. North Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Awesome. We've gotten a lot of Ohio's. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We can go ahead and get started with our webinar today, but feel free to keep posting where you all are tuning in from, and we'll say hi. Love to see the Colorado ones in there. But we are going to be chatting today about how to keep retention high in a difficult market. I'm sure many of you insurance agents who are joining us today have experienced some of the challenges, and we're going to get into those. But let's start with some introductions. So I am Brooke Eaton. I am the marketing communication specialist here at ClientCircle. I joined the team in 2020, and I started out as an account manager, which means that I got to work with many of you throughout the years. And then I moved into the marketing role. So I do a lot of content creation, whether that's videos, doing webinars like this, blog posts, success stories, things like that. And I am actually joined with someone who I used to work with all the time when I was an account manager.
Yes. Hi, I'm Jimi Honochick from YMI Insurance. Brooke, I'm glad you brought me here. I'm sure I annoyed you very much as a client, but we used, ClientCircle a lot. And so it's been a great tool for us. So I'm happy to be here and talk about, retention and anything else that you want to hit.
Yes. And Jimmy has been with, how long have you been with YMI? 3 years?
I've been with YMI 3 years, and we've been with you guys for almost 8 years now.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. Well, thank you so much for being a client for 8 years. And I saw that your parents joined as well, who also, your dad still works at the insurance agency. And then your mom.
Yeah, it's a family affair here. I mean, my dad took over the insurance agencies in the late 90s. My mom worked with him in a marketing capacity. And then I came in 3 years ago and really took to the marketing side of it pretty well, to the point where I did drive my mom insane. She said, I'm getting out of here. You can take this over now. And so it's been a great partnership with my dad. We've done a lot on the customer side, on the agency side, and on the marketing side. And so that's sort of where we are now.
We got some agreement from Doris there. Well, cool. Well, what we're going to go ahead and talk about today is it's going to be all about retention. We're going to start by just addressing and acknowledging some of the challenges that many of you all have been facing in the insurance industry. And then we want to hear from someone who is in the weeds right there with you. So that's why we have Jimmy on this call. So he's going to really talk about some of the processes that he does at his agency with him and his team. And they have managed to improve retention in 2023 and going into this year by about 7 points. You all have multiple locations throughout Pennsylvania, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, we have an office in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, and then 2 here in the Lehigh Valley. So Bethlehem is 30 minutes away from the Stroudsburg office, and then we just opened an Allentown office about 15 minutes away from that one.
Yes, and they've managed to improve retention at all 3 of their locations, and we will talk more about kind of some of those numbers as we talk about a few of the other things. But that's part of why we wanted Jimmy on here, is just to share some of that experience that he has firsthand being in the insurance. We're also going to keep it fun with a few polls sprinkled throughout. We want to hear from you all as well about what you're doing at your agencies, what's working well. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to share kind of a new feature just very quickly here from ClientCircle so that you all can kind of have the first peek at that. All right, so let's start with the industry challenges. I think depending on where you are in the country, some of these might be hitting your agency more than others. You know, for example, carriers leaving certain markets and the increase in natural disasters, those might be more regional for some of you here in states where that's happening more frequently. But I think based on what we're seeing, I think you as well, Jimmy, we're seeing rising premiums, the inflation affecting the replacement costs, staffing issues throughout a lot of agencies across the country. Jimmy, what are some of the ones that you all are facing more often at YMI Insurance?
Yeah, I think we're lucky where we are geographically. So we're in Pennsylvania, and I mean, I'll knock on wood, but we're insulated from a lot of the big natural disasters that we've seen. But we're still hitting all of this. I mean, our premiums are going up, and it's probably not a big deal to, you know, a Florida agent or a California agent, but we're seeing premium increases 10, 15, 20, up to 50% from some carriers. And so that does create a strain on retention, on customer satisfaction. But we've found, you know, some ways to combat that. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But carriers leaving the market as well. I mean, Pennsylvania, we're okay, but we write in New Jersey as well, right on the border there. And we've seen it get very tight over there. And the carriers that we once wrote with, no longer are we allowed to write with them over there. And so it is a challenge. I would say those are certainly challenges. Yeah, and staffing as well. I think everyone sees that. And as an industry, I think that's something we're not great at, getting ourselves out there and marketing ourselves as, you know, a great industry to work in, but we are. This is my 3rd career. I gave up a career in television and in, you know, finance to pursue this because it is a great life. It's a great career. It's really rewarding. But we don't tell people that. We like keep it as our little secret, and it doesn't do us any benefits. It makes it hard to recruit and staff up. And so that's something that I'll get on a soapbox and talk about if you want to, but staffing is something that should be, you know, top of mind for everyone.
Yeah, yes, 100%. So I'm glad that you're here so that you can kind of share some of those tips along the way on how you've been able to improve retention and address some of these issues that have been facing the insurance industry, especially in the last year and a half, but starting, you know, long before that. So let's go ahead and jump into our first poll, because I think the first step to talking about retention is collecting client feedback, finding out who your retention risks are. So you'll probably see a poll pop up there on the bottom left of your screen, and you can submit as many answers. You know, it's a check all that applies situation. But while you all are responding to that, Jimmy, what are some of the ways that you collect client feedback throughout the year to help identify those retention risks?
Yeah, I think it depends. So whether we're talking personal lines or commercial lines, and I'll say we are heavier on personal lines, but we are pushing more into commercial. But on the personal line side, I guess I'll give you guys a shout out here. We use you heavily for client feedback. The NPS scores, you know, we track those all year round, and they go out at regular intervals. But we also use you guys as a tool for kind of annual renewals to check in there. It's so important to hear from your agent, you know, at least once a year, just to see how it's going, especially in a market right now where people are shopping much more. You know, they're seeing their rates increase at renewal. and I haven't heard from my agent in a year or 2 years, that becomes a hard sell. And so having automation that's there that contacts and reaches out proactively for you is a huge tool and a huge retention tool. So that's definitely something that we use to solicit feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is very true. And I will go ahead and start just by explaining what the Net Promoter Score is. And I'm going to get a little bit more from you too in a second. But like Jimmy said, they use us to send the Net Promoter Score survey. So if I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this, but for anyone who's not, the Net Promoter Score survey it's just a 1-question survey. It asks how likely are you to recommend our agency to a friend or colleague on a scale of 0 to 10. And kind of the beauty with this survey is that it's so short that people are likely to answer it. And then we do have a follow-up question that comes up afterwards that does give them the option to leave feedback. They don't have to, but a lot of times if someone is, upset, they might not always want to spend the time to fill out, a 15-minute long survey to give you feedback on all of the ways that you can improve the process. But if all they have to do is click a button and then they have the option to leave feedback earlier or after that, then they can often leave that feedback for you and they're just more likely to respond. So that's one of the reasons why we like the Net Promoter Score survey. And we'll just go ahead and show an example of what YMI Insurance, this is what they send out to all of their clients a couple times per year to collect feedback. And Jimmy, I want to hear from you on how you respond to these surveys, especially when you get some of that negative feedback. How do you navigate those really difficult conversations and encourage your staff to do the same?
I was going to say, if you think that people who have negative reviews are going to, stop if they run into problems to leave feedback, they're not. They're going to find a way. They love to say that. And we love to get those. Our response to these is the same, basically, whether it's good or bad. If we get a good review, we're going to reach out and say, like, what do you like about us? What are we doing right? And if we get a bad one, we're going to reach out with a phone call and say, we're really sorry. Tell us more about what experiences you're not enjoying right now. And what we do, which is great, is we broadcast these to everyone in the agency. So when someone leaves us a 10, everyone sees that customer gave us a 10 and they know who the agent associated with that customer is. And so there's this, mindset that you want your clients to give you, good scores. And on the flip side, anyone that leaves, a 4 or a 3 gets seen by everyone in the agency. And so a funny story about that, before I started working the agency, I was a client of the agency and I got this. And the question is, how likely is it that you would recommend YMI Insurance to a friend or colleague? And to me, it was like, I don't know. I don't recommend insurance agencies for a living, so I don't really do it. So I gave a 4 and that went out to everyone. And you can imagine what fun they had talking to my dad about me leaving them a 4. So I was a detractor before I ever worked here, but I got a phone call right away. I got a phone call from our personal lines manager. She said, what's going on here? And so I explained my reasoning. And it's that public, display of how we're doing that I think is really powerful. And we really, really take these NPS scores seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, first off, a hilarious story. I definitely thought you were going to say, and then I got a call from my dad and he told me I was grounded or something.
I probably did.
But yes, I love that you take it seriously and that you call the people who are having issues. And we actually have found that calling clients, detractors specifically, so those who leave a 6 or lower on these NPS survey scores, if you can give them a call within 48 hours, it increases your chances of retaining them by 55%. So this is a really simple and powerful tool that you all can use to improve retention.
You must have told us that at some point, and that's why we do it. But it's expected of the agents to call as soon as we get those bad reviews. And to me, they're more important. Like, I love getting great reviews and doing well, but finding out what we're not doing right is just as important.
Yes, exactly. And it's cool that you broadcast it so that people kind of know what's going on and stuff. And that's something that we do internally as well when someone leaves some nice feedback, we do have a way to post that publicly, and it really is a mood boost in your day. It keeps you motivated. That's great. I also like Scott's comment in here that can make for Thanksgiving.
My grandfather was an insurance agent. My dad's insurance agent. My uncles are insurance agents. So they're awkward already. They're all insurance.
Yep. I'm sure that makes for a fun dinner conversation for the non-insurance workers in your family. So kind of just to wrap up this section here about collecting client feedback, I mean, that's where we're going to start with retention. And so we like the Net Promoter Score surveys here at ClientCircle, just because it's such a simple way with a high response rate to collect client feedback. And we do recommend, like Jimmy said, sending those, twice a year. Twice a year is what we normally recommend. And that's what YMI Insurance does as well, is so that you can collect that feedback before it's too late, right? If you're only checking in around renewal time, often that is going to be too late for you to identify a detractor and be able to retain them. Many of you may have had experiences where someone just left your agency who you thought was a really happy customer, a big promoter of yours, but you just didn't know that something was going on and probably could have easily fixed it had you just asked the question. And so that is part of why we do like the Net Promoter Score survey and doing it a couple times a year. And we know that it's also hard to train your staff on navigating those difficult conversations. And so that is something that we have resources for, is how to have those phone conversations with your customers who are unhappy based on the specific feedback they leave. And I think we're going to go ahead and post that in the chat for you all as well. And you can also find that information on the downloads portion of our ClientCircle website if you do ever need it. And just remember to keep addressing that feedback quickly. Like I said, if you can give those detractors a call within 48 hours, that's really going to improve your chances of retaining them. And then the last thing is just to monitor those trends and make changes accordingly. I think that's something that a lot of insurance agents are looking at and doing, especially right now, is just doing an audit of those processes to see where they can improve things, where the breakdowns in communication are, and what areas they might be losing customers in, because retention is such a important subject right now with all of the challenges the insurance industry is facing. And we've been actually using AI way before it was cool. We've been using AI for about 10 years to monitor feedback and address changes. So if you do use ClientCircle for surveys, we can kind of monitor all of the feedback that you're getting. We can identify commonly mentioned themes and topics, whether they're good or bad, as well as employees and carriers, and where most of your detractors are and where most of your promoters are, so you can see what's working well and what might need to be improved. All right, so let's go ahead and do another poll, because we're going to start talking about processes, and we're going to start with onboarding as we're talking about those breakdowns in communication. This is kind of your first chance to set expectations with clients. So we want to hear from you all. What communications do you send for onboarding? And once again, this is one of the ones where you can submit multiple answers, check all that apply. But Jimmy, let's hear from you. What communications do you all send during onboarding?
You know, we get to talk about one of my favorite topics here, so I'm very excited. We do a lot. I think we do an email, right away saying, hey, thank you for joining. Here's what you can expect as a client. And then I think like 2 weeks later, we send another one, just checking in, making sure that their expectations were met, that they're still happy, because that is when the client, is the most responsive to us. They're the most excited to be with us. And so it's the greatest time to kind of just check in on our onboarding process. But my favorite part of what we do is the handwritten cards. I cannot express to you the positivity and the feedback that we get from those. And I was very skeptical coming in. Just mail in general, I figured was, a pretty dead medium, but it's not. And I think there's something about email is great and it has its place, but who's getting handwritten thank you notes or handwritten cards, these days? It's a bunch of junk mail and flyers, but this kind of separates us. And we don't have to do it. Right there, Sue Vena. She's one of our agents. She didn't actually write this, but the client gets it, and the client absolutely loves it. We get calls thanking us for the thank you that we send, which is ridiculous. And so I absolutely love that we do these. I think that they have a huge impact, way beyond what I would have ever thought. So this is part of the onboarding. Just this thank you for joining, and we're excited to have you on. And it builds a stronger connection with the agent. I mean, they've gotten the personalization with ClientCircle is something that I really like. So they've gotten 2 emails from their agent. They've gotten a handwritten letter from their agent. They now know clearly who to go to if they have an issue. They know that this person is, will be in touch with them and is in communication with them. And they know that they're, a nice and welcoming person. And so it builds a really strong bond right off the start. And I think that's got to be something that's factoring into, our higher retention for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone who doesn't know, this is a service that we do provide at ClientCircle. We can send handwritten cards from agents to your customers, even to your prospects. And these really do look handwritten. We use real ink. We use a forever stamp on the card. It basically does look like you just hand wrote a card to your clients. And I'm so glad to hear that you've gotten those phone calls and the positive feedback. And I think this is a way that makes you stand out, right? Many of you all are independent agents, and this is the type of personalized service that they want when they have chosen to go with an independent insurance agent. And so just a really quick way to stand out to your clients right away, start that relationship on a great foot. And something else that I know that we do for you, Jimmy, and do for a lot of agencies is we send a review request shortly after this welcome card, which is a great time because it's when they're most likely to write a review, leave a referral, and they have a positive experience now to talk about. You took the time to handwrite them a card,
Yeah.
so they think, and so then it's kind of more of a encouragement for them to leave a review or make a referral if they know someone.
And it's silly. I say all the time, it's silly how important Google reviews are for our business, but they really, truly are. And we've done a great job. I'm really happy with, the success that we've had. We're over 200 in our Stroudsburg location. We're over 150 at our Bethlehem location. And this Allentown location has been open 5 months, and we're above 50 already.
Wow.
And so I think you're right. Part of the process with you guys that we have is after we've onboarded, they're the happiest that they'll likely ever be with us. We just saved them a bunch of money, and we've brought them on, and they've seen this welcoming atmosphere that we have. And we just ask, hey, would you mind, leaving us a Google review about your experience? And the take-up rate is really great, and they're going to leave you a good review there. In fact, Allentown, I'm upset we have a 5.0. I want someone to leave us a bad review so that it's 4.9 and we look a little more normal. But it's a good problem to have.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning of you all joining, is that you can post the questions in the chat. And I actually am seeing a couple questions in the chat. We'll answer some of these at the end, but I think some of these are applicable right as we're talking about them. So Brandon wanted to know if you ask for referrals in the welcome letter along with the review request. What do you do at YMI, Jimmy?
So we don't ask if you're asking about a Google review. We're not asking for that in the welcome letter, but in a follow-up email, they are getting that. So it's pretty shortly after we've found the policy, just because that immediacy is important, I think. And so we're asking them, if you had a great experience, would you please mind leaving a review? And here's the link. And so we've had, like I said, a lot of success with that.
Yeah. And then
I don't know what the additional cost of handwritten cards are,
worries.
but I know it's worth it, whatever it is.
Yes, well, thank you. So Jennifer, to answer your question, at ClientCircle, we've got a few different card plans and options that you can get on. They're about $2 to $3 per card, depending on which plan you're on. So if you think about that, $2 to $3 per client. I can give you some stats on how likely they are to leave a review if they receive this type of card and things like that. And maybe if one of our team members on this webinar has a chance, you could post the blog about what's the value of a handwritten card. So about $2 to $3 per card, and it is well worth it. The ROI is pretty high on those, depending on what your goals are. And we are going to talk about the gift card feature coming up, Reagan. So I'm going to save that question for now. And just one more question before we keep moving on, and then I'll probably save some of these questions for the end. But we did have a question about how you broadcast your survey responses and testimonials to your team internally, Jimmy.
I don't know if that's a feature within ClientCircle or if we've adapted, our Outlook logic to do that.
Okay.
But it does, whenever it comes through, it goes out, and I'd have to check to see how that happens.
Okay, sounds good. I didn't know if you knew off the top of your head, but for any of you all that use tools like Zapier, we do have integrations with that, and we can, that's a setting that you can turn on and be able to send those out to your team if you use Slack or Teams or something like that. So talk to your account manager about that, and we'll try and help you as best we can. All right, so let's keep going through some of the processes that you all go through at YMI Insurance, and claims is another one that we've probably seen an uptick in at a lot of agencies. I want to know how you all handle claims and what you do to make sure that people who are filing claims know that you're there, but have the tools they need to file the claim.
Yeah, I mean, we can be old school in a lot of ways, and to us, those personal interactions, those touch points help to build the relationship. And so we try to communicate to all of our clients that if you have a claim, come to us. Like, don't put it off on a carrier phone bank. Come to us, and we're going to walk you through this. Because I say all the time, insurance is a promise, and this is where we fulfill our promise. This is where we are there on our end of the promise. And so when a claim comes in, we want to handle it. We want to submit it to the carrier. And then we always set a suspense for the next day to make sure that an adjuster has reached out and they've been contacted. And then, we follow those through all the way till the end. So once that first contact has been made, we're going to set out a task for 2 weeks, let's say, and check in at that point. And we just do that until the claim has been settled. And it does two things. I mean, it builds that trust with the client. The client's very happy. But it allows us to keep track of, the claim as it goes through the process, which is, I think, incredibly important right now because as you see, subrogation becomes more and more important. We view our loss ratios with our carriers as something that's really important to us. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to keep that as low as we can. And so following that claim all the way through is something that's important to us on that end as well.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you for sharing about that. I think that it is a little different for every agency, and it's just good to hear how you all are handling them.
Yeah.
And then another place where we are hearing a lot of feedback that insurance agents might be having a hard time retaining customers at renewals. So Jimmy, can you kind of speak to that? What do you do for rate increases at renewals? How are you retaining those clients at renewals? And what's your process at YMI Insurance like?
So I will say two things. The first is we do send out an email, 30 days prior. And I don't know if we're going to talk about cross-selling at all in this webinar, but this is a great opportunity that we take advantage of. So at renewal, like I was saying before, 30 days ahead, they get an email like this one here saying, hey, let's schedule a renewal review. And again, it goes back to, I haven't heard from my agent in 2 years. Well, you have, we sent you an email and we're trying to talk. And so it's just a great touch point with the client, and they take us up on it, and it just strengthens that relationship again. But something else we do is we can look at our monolines, and I think this was part of me bothering you all the time, Brooke, was we put this automation into place where at renewal, if we have monolines, we send them an email. If it's an auto, we send them, hey, where's your home? Or if it's a home, where's your auto? And then year 2, they get a brand new email that looks different. It talks different, but it's asking the same question, like, where is your other line? and that helps us, and we've had great success where they say, it's with so and so. Would you be interested? And we say, absolutely, we'd be interested. And so building those automations takes what could be a really manual process of cross-selling, finding the right accounts, but we don't have to find the accounts. We don't have to call them. They're getting an automated email at renewal time. So it's been a great tool for both retention and for new business for us.
Yes. Yeah. That is a really good shout. We didn't add it to this slide, but yeah, you are doing the home no auto no home, a lot of those monoline automations that we have available in ClientCircle. And I love that you switch up the email on your second year so that you are kind of asking in a different way, but still asking the question.
Yeah.
They change every year,
Yep.
which is also another beautiful thing about having this renewal survey in there, that you can kind of catch some of these things while at renewals too. I love that you all do that.
And we've had, people schedule the renewal review, and they leave some negative feedback, let's say, and that's so valuable. That's a client that would have left us because they were upset, and they're still 30 days out. They told us then, and now we can have the conversation with them and repair that relationship before they leave us. So just checking in like that, whether they're happy, whether they're unhappy, has had, great success for us.
Yes. Yeah, that is huge. It's hard to hear, but it's so valuable to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, have you found that it's a quick fix?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it is, my rate went up $10, and we have a conversation. We're like, that's actually pretty good. And we show them. I just had a good friend actually who their increase was 40% on their home renewal. And I said, yes, that increase is very scary, but take a look, take a look at your other options. And we shopped it around, and he's still well below any other option. And that all came because that automated email went out and he responded to it. So it's a great way to get that feedback and keep customers happy.
And at what point do you requote for them? Like what percentage increase?
So we try to, 10% is a good number for us, where if they're calling and asking, then we're going to shop for them. This was something I think you and I talked about earlier, where there's ways to build in that automation that we just haven't done yet. And that's something that we absolutely need to take advantage of, where if there is a 10% increase, we're reaching out proactively. That is just, it goes along with our philosophy, and I think would be a huge retention tool where clients are happy to see that we're being proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that kind of gets into Adam's point here in the chat too. Adam, you were asking about, if they get the cross-sell email, will they also get the renewal email? One of the nice things about ClientCircle, that is, as long as we have the data coming from your management system, we can do a lot of these things for you. So if you don't want people to get a renewal email, if they're a monoline client, instead you want them to get the cross-sell email, we can help with that. As long as we know what the rate increase is going to be for their new renewal, we can help you set up some automations around that. So there's a lot of clever things that we can do, and we'll just need to chat more. We work with a ton of management systems, so it'll just depend on which management system you use, and it's a great conversation to have with your account manager. And Dale, also to your point, we can, Jimmy and his team does 30 days out. You can do 45 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out, really. No matter however many days you want to do out for those renewal emails, we can help you with it. But Jimmy, do you think that 30 days has been enough time for you all for the renewals?
It has been. You're not getting renewal information much earlier than that, really. And so it does give, the client enough time to say, hey, I'd like to talk about this, and then for us to shop it. We've got a rater, so we're able to kind of get numbers pretty quickly and then start having those informed conversations.
Yeah.
But one thing you said, and I'm very guilty of it, is don't be afraid to bother your account manager at ClientCircle. They're super responsive, and I bugged you a lot, and it helps build out these automations. Like having those lines of dialogue are great, and you can build out the automations and really run with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Well, thank you for that shout. always a pleasure. Honestly, I saw a lot of names who I've got to work with over the years, and it's really fun to help and brainstorm and come up with these ideas. And that's what our team is here for. We love insurance, we love insurance agents, and we want to help you grow. That's our ultimate goal. So thanks for that, Jimmy. That's really nice.
Because I'm not tech savvy, and so like some of the logic, it's not hard. You make it pretty, client focused and easy to understand. But I get scared, and so I have, you guys are very good at walking us through and setting it up how I want it to work, and so it's easy and it's the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of just to wrap up this section here about different processes that you all may be looking at to refine at your own agencies for all the people attending this webinar, I would say really start with an audit of your onboarding process. Make sure your customers know the basics about their policies, how they can get help. So for example, look through your welcome communications, make sure they know some basic information about their policy, carrier, and then some other processes like how to file a claim or where to get their ID cards, how to pay their bill, and any limitations of their policy. That can always lead into some of those cross-sell conversations that Jimmy was talking about. And ways they can get in touch, whether that's your website, an agency portal, or an app that you have, numbers to text or call if you offer those services. And who their primary contact is at your agency. Maybe it's the same person they've been working with, or maybe you're going to hand them off from a producer to a CSR. Just make sure that they know those sorts of things and set those expectations early. Try to be available where they want to be available, which can sound overwhelming, but there are tools in ClientCircle, and elsewhere to be able to help you do these things so that you can manage those conversations in one place. And Jimmy's going to talk a little bit more about that here shortly. But you probably have run into clients who say they never check their email. And that's fine. You can be available via phone or text, web chat, whatever works for them. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And then just always try and do those warm, personalized touches. Like I said, they went with an independent insurance agent in many cases because they want that personalized service. And so a handwritten card is, one of many ways where you can stick out. And maybe that's sending a card at onboarding. It can also be during renewal or during a claim. And you can automate all of these communications. And so that is another thing that can help take some things off your plate and make sure that things don't slip through the cracks. So as we're kind of chatting, and we might have just lost our presentation. Are you all? Oh, there we go. So we'll go into another poll now about how can customers and prospects get in touch with your agency. Once again, this is a check all that apply. And Jimmy, what about you? How can people get in touch with YMI Insurance?
I'm looking at the list in the poll, and I think all of them are the answer. And truly, I mean, we want to be there where the client is. And of those, I feel like walk-in is my least favorite, but we're there too. I mean, all of our doors are open, and we regularly get clients in, but we try to be where they are. And so if that's a phone call, we're there. If it is a form where they want to fill out and talk to us, through our website, we're there for that. If it's email, we're there. Social media, we get messages there too. We're pretty active there. And then the chat feature on the website, we run that through you guys, and it's great. You get that, and just in our platform, in our ClientCircle platform, we can respond right there. And people really like that. I mean, we've gotten messages from clients, from prospects, from other agencies who are trying to get in touch with us. And to me, I'm like, why didn't you pick up the phone? But I guess, you're there. And so it's just an easy conversation, and the response rate is great. So we try to be everywhere we can. This is one of our favorite features.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that it's working well for you all and that you like it. So I've got a kind of just a picture of YMI's website here with the web chat feature that they have installed. And so as I was kind of alluding to in the previous slide about managing multiple conversations, We have a tab in ClientCircle if you use our texting, our web chat, and we do have web chat available on Facebook and Google, as well as your website. But all of those conversations can kind of flow into one dashboard. So you might be thinking, if you haven't seen this before, that it's going to be a lot to manage all these conversations in all these different places. How am I supposed to check all of these things? With ClientCircle, they can just be in one spot so that you can answer your texts, web chats, on other online messages, all in one platform.
And that's a great point, because I do feel like I'm getting pulled in 500 directions sometimes, but with ClientCircle, I can just log in there and see all of those messages and not have to be in all those places at once.
Yeah, we definitely try to make it easier for you, because turns out insurance agents have so much to manage, so many things on their plate. And we want to make it possible to improve retention without adding too much to your plate to work on, So another question about how you do things at YMI is, how do you make clients feel valued? What are some of those extra touches, those extra things that you do for your customers to make sure that they feel special?
I'm going to talk about handwritten cards again, because they're awesome. But you and I used to work, we would have, leftover cards that we hadn't used. And we would work on who to send them to, because I don't remember if it's monthly or quarterly, you get the allotment. And when you have those extra, you and I would sit down and I'd say, all right, let's do, our high net worth clients this year, or let's do, our monoline autos this month. And getting those cards again is such a differentiator, the handwritten cards. No one is used to getting those, and now they're getting a personalized message that's saying, hey, have you thought about putting your home with us? And so we love that. Referral sources with the gift card, that's also just a great thing. It looks like that. Again, it looks handwritten, and they're getting a little thank you. And so the next time they have that conversation with a friend, they're going to be likely to refer. They're not going to be Jimi Honochick leaving a 4. They're going to say, oh, look at this. I get a gift card in the mail. And so it's automated when, when an agent is putting in a client in Hawksoft, which is our new agency management system, they will ask, hey, who referred you to us? You put it in there, and automatically they're getting a handwritten letter and a gift card. And so it really strengthens that connection, and it triggers them to think about us next time. So we love that one. And then it was, how do we make people feel valued? For our commercial clients, again, we are old school in some of the ways. We love automation, but there's some things you can't replicate. Those in-person visits are super important. And so we go out there, deliver the binder, the policies. We have the conversations. We will do that, when we're writing someone, and then even throughout the year, we'll go out there and just check in on them. How's business? Any updates to your work, your payroll, and just helps to strengthen that relationship so that the retention is there, so that they know if they have an issue with their coverage or with us, that there's an open line of communication and they can tell us about it. So we're a big fan of that. The holiday cards, that's kind of what I was talking about before. We love sending that, and I think it gets everyone, happy about the holidays. It's a good time to just remind them that you're here. They're already in good spirits, and now, YMI and good spirits kind of get linked, and so that's a nice little touch. And yes, we do have a podcast. I started a podcast a little over a year ago, focused on local businesses, and it's been great. I would suggest it to anyone. It's really done a number of things that I didn't even expect. Yes, we've written business off of it, and that's great, but that's not even the best part of it. We are developing relationships with important community members, where they're getting a platform that they wouldn't have had otherwise, and they're getting an audience that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And so we've strengthened those relationships. We've built relationships. And we're getting in front of their audiences. And so, it's just really strengthening our brand awareness in the community, strengthening our relationships in the community. And so anyone who has ever thought about having a podcast, I would highly recommend it.
And I didn't chat with you before this, but can they find your podcast somewhere? Would you be open to providing advice if people have
Oh yeah.
podcasting.
I don't know if you have my contact information in here, but I'll drop it anywhere. If anyone has any questions about any of this or a podcast, I'm definitely happy to talk. And you can find it anywhere. I mean, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast, I'm pretty sure we're there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I listen to it on Apple, so
there you go. Uh-huh.
And that's called the YMI Talking podcast.
YMI Talking, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's focused on the businesses around us, and it's been great for developing that brand awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really fun podcast. Cool. So kind of as we're chatting about these things, in a market like the insurance industry is facing right now, you have to stand out from your competitors. And so there are lots of ways that you can do that, and you'll just find what works best for you. And maybe you'll do all of these or a mix of them. But just, try to be available on multiple channels. If you're easy to communicate with, that's going to be an automatic differentiator. If they can talk to a real person on the platform they prefer, that is going to be huge. And then think of those nice things that you can do to make your clients feel special throughout the year. Maybe it's handwritten cards, like a lot of what they do at YMI Insurance. Maybe it's just sending those emails to educate your customers with useful videos, articles, podcasts. Why am I talking? To kind of provide that extra value. And we do have a tool that can help you with that at ClientCircle. It's called Client Connect, where just when there's a gap in communication, we can send out an article, a video, podcast, whatever you want. And it can be about an insurance subject, but it can also be something more general, like things to do. You can add your things to do in your community. You can add your own links, or we do have a library that's categorized by topic where you can choose, and you can segment that out. So if you're sending an article about how to organize your garage, you can send that article just to people who have a homeowner's policy with you, because that'll be applicable to most of them.
And just piggybacking off of that, I was at a networking event last week, and the guy came up to me and said, insurance is or feels like such a commoditized industry where everyone's doing the same thing and they're selling the same thing and they're talking the same way. And he's like, you guys are different, and I know you, and I'm comfortable with you, and I'm familiar with you. So whatever you can do to stand out, I agree. It makes you, when people think about the commodity, they're going to think about you. And that's what we try to do. And I think those are great tips for how to stand out.
Yes. Yeah. And then getting involved in your community, whether that's with the podcast, like what Jimmy's doing, or just attending local events, supporting charities, hosting things, all of those are gonna help you stand out. So yeah, great. And then this is something that I really wanted to hear from you about, Jimmy, because you, if you aren't connected with Jimmy on social media, I would highly recommend it. It's going to be Jimi, Jimi Honochick. We can maybe post some of that information in the chat as well. But how have you stood out on social media? What are some of the things you do to kind of up your social media game and promote a brand that people recognize and love?
Yeah, and it's funny, I forgot about this one here, but this had such great feedback where we spent, several months every week highlighting commercial clients. And that, did a number of things. It showed our commercial clients that we care about them, we value them, and we appreciate them. It showed, any followers that came onto our platform that we have, strong commercial presence, that we are capable and we do well in the commercial world. And it just gave us unique content instead of the generic picture of a guy behind like a cash register and it says, does your business have insurance? Like it shows that we do this. It shows that same thing, but in a much more, not commoditized way. And so that was a great one that we had a lot of success. And anything we do in the community, to your point, we try to be very active in the community. I'm on the board of the local chamber here, and any event that we're at, we'll snap a couple pictures and we'll throw it up there. And it does again, several things. Like, it shows anyone who lands on our socials that we are active in the community, that we are not generic or different, and that we are involved and we're invested in this community. And like you say there, it makes insurance feel a little more human. We want to show who are the people here. We celebrate our accomplishments and our victories, and we try to humanize ourselves a little bit. And yes, stay away from generic content. We brought on a woman who does our social media for 2 days a week. She's in, and every day I tell her I don't want any generic content, because it starts commoditizing you again. You'll have the same post that 100 other agents have, and you're not different. No one's going to think about you. You need to keep it relevant. You need to keep it different and unique. And so we use social media to do that and have had a lot of success. It helps to build those relationships, and that's kind of what we're all about here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, very cool. All right, I'm going to try and go quickly through these last few slides. I've been seeing some some questions in the comment I also want to get to, but want to make sure we get through our content. Just so you'll know, if we miss any of the questions in the chat, we will have someone follow up with you afterwards. So one more poll about cross-selling. Which policies are you focused on cross-selling this year? And you can check all that apply. And then Jimmy, I think I'm just going to kind of ask you about some of your cross-selling initiatives. You've alluded to some of this, but we have the examples here on the screen. If you could just kind of talk about the feedback that you've gotten from your monoline, personal lines, cross-sells, as well as some of your life insurance campaigns.
I was going to say, you and I had a lot of long hours putting together these life insurance cards, because we write with Erie. They're one of our carriers. And Erie likes life insurance, and they like us writing life insurance, and they'll have little contests where we're supposed to write more life insurance. And so ahead of those, we would always send these out, because again, I'm a huge proponent of the handwritten note, and the feedback is great. I mean, the response rate was great. Sending an email about life insurance is nice and good. But to Edward's question there, email open rates aren't always great, but handwritten letter open rates are, I would imagine, like 100%. And so you're not going to get, everyone that opens it, but you're going to get everyone to open it and look about it and think about it. And so these were hugely important for our cross-sell, but we do kind of, whatever we can on the cross-sell front and in the automation front. Like we talked about before, our monolines, we're hitting them with 2 different emails over a year. So we've built that into our process, and we do the same with life when we need to. So we have systems built in, and then we have one-off ways of working with that too.
Awesome. Yes. And I think we also shared some tips about building an email marketing campaign as well there for you as a resource. But yeah, that's true. Like, and then 10 tips for writing simple emails that work. My most favorite blog ever. I really like that one because it's just so practical and helpful. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it is just about getting on a new medium. So in this case, handwritten cards to reach your clients in a different way that really sticks out. And I really enjoy just doing those life happens, handwritten cards, usually monthly, and so we'd switch up the types of policies we did. But that's something that we're really happy to help anyone with who wants to do that. And then I'll quickly go through this slide, but just a few ways to grow your agency, even if your main focus this year is retention, that aren't going to overwhelm you. So one of them is just automate your cross-selling. A lot of times this can be just a very simple, put it in place, have the cross-selling kind of start to happen more automatically for you. Be available on multiple platforms. Like we talked about earlier, we've got tools to help you be available in a lot of different ways while only having one dashboard where you can manage those conversations. And then just maintain your brand reputation. What the look that you're going for with your insurance agency brand, make sure that that's consistent, whether you're posting on social media, talking to a client, sending an email, just try and keep that consistent. And I think that Jimmy and YMI Insurance have done a really beautiful job of this. And And then one thing that I just want to share with you all before we kind of jump into a few questions is we are announcing a new feature today. It is called Queues, and it is going to be a powerful tool for your website where you can generate leads. And you actually may have already seen it if you sign up for the webinar. If you go to the ClientCircle website, you'll kind of see that on the side there. But yeah, you can turn your agency website into a tool that helps you get more leads, sell more policies, and improve your client experiences. Whether that's reminding them of a renewal date or something else, another personalized notification, we can do that. We can help you announce some agency events. There's just a lot of things that you can do with Queues. And we're going to have a webinar about it on April 10th if you would like to see more. The link is in our chat. It looks like it just got posted there. So go ahead and register for that. We also have a blog on our website today that shares more information about Queues. But I won't steal the thunder, and I want to make sure that we get some of these questions answered. So let me go ahead and search through here and make sure. Oh, Reagan, you had asked earlier about some of the best practices around gift cards. From what I've seen work well, with working with many agencies, is to use that gift card kind of as a surprise. It really makes them feel good. But honestly, even sending a card can be a nice surprise as well. And it depends on the state you're in, right, Jimmy, on some of the laws around sending gift cards. So just make sure that you're up to date with those. And you also asked about using those for reviews. I believe that it's against Google's terms of use to pay for reviews, so we don't encourage that. All right. Let's see what other questions we are having here. All right, so Eric has some questions about websites. Eric, I think that maybe we're going to have someone follow up with you after this to chat with you more about websites. One nice thing about having all of your tools in one place with ClientCircle, whether that's, and we do offer websites, but yeah, we can have your websites, your communications, many, many things all in one platform there for you. So you don't have to try and juggle multiple tools. Things can integrate a little more seamlessly, like what you were saying. And Edward, you asked about web chats, if agents can download those and attach them in their AMS. Once again, it just all depends on your management system and the capabilities. But we do, regardless of which management system you use, we can always send you an email chat transcript of any web chat conversations after they end. And then with some of the management systems, we can automatically attach them in your management system. And then others, if you want to add those as an activity, for example, in your management system, you can drag and drop that email and we can chat with you based on your management system. Yes. Kristen, great question. We have indeed run numbers on how effective holiday cards and other things like that are. We've got a whole blog about it, but for holiday cards specifically, we found that agencies that send holiday cards have an average net promoter score 4 points higher than those that don't. And how that translates to retention is every 10-point increase in net promoter score is about a 2% increase in retention. So maybe a little less than 1% increase in retention just from sending holiday cards. They really do work. 1% of your book of business is probably quite a bit of money. So we do have some stats for that. And it looks like we also posted that blog again. And you will not need a ClientCircle website in order to use Queues, and we'll chat a lot about that on our upcoming webinar on April 10th. And then, are there privacy concerns when posting a commercial client of the week? Jimmy, would you mind chatting about that from your perspective?
So, I mean, we reached out to several of them before we started, the campaign, and the feedback was all positive. we didn't, we weren't going to put anyone out there who maybe the relationship was going south or anything like that. It was all, clients that were positive with us, and they were all happy to do it. They were all very happy.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And then I think that a few of these questions, I know we're running out of time, so I do just want to, Jimmy, if you have time, we can stay and answer a couple more questions. But I do want to encourage anyone who has to jump off. If you already have a ClientCircle account, go ahead and reach out to your account manager and let's start talking about some retention strategies for this year. And if you're new to ClientCircle, please go ahead and schedule a demo with us. We'd love to hear about your agency goals, how you run your agency, and we want to help you improve retention. So please, find a time to schedule with us, and we'll make sure that we hear more about your agency and goals. And if you are an existing ClientCircle user, if you log into your account, you can use that service and support tab to chat right away with an account manager.
Wait, can I pump you guys up for a second there?
Sure, we love that.
Going back to bugging your account manager, our website is with a different company, and my biggest gripe with them is how you reach out to them and it is very automated. There's no real interaction, whereas I bug you or I bug Scott, who replaced you, and we're sitting, on the phone for an hour going through what I want to go through and scheduling it and working on it and setting it up. And so just the personal touch, you guys are obviously great with automation, but the personal touch is there as well. And that balance is great. And so, yeah, absolutely schedule time with your account manager. If no one has yelled at me to go away yet, they're not going to yell at you. So set up the time. They'll be happy to help you.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And I think that one more question from Ryan, because I think this is going to be a question that you'll need to answer, Jimmy. But do you have your commercial clients, when you post that, do they sign a form?
We did not have them sign a form. Maybe you could, but that was not what we did.
Yep, for sure. All right. Well, awesome. Thank you all so much for joining. I think that either through posts, we were able, or Jimmy and I talking, we were able to answer most of your questions. We are going to go back through the chat transcripts. And for any ones that we missed, we will have someone follow up with you and make sure you get those questions answered. And you should be receiving a replay via email within the next day. It could come tomorrow, but we'll make sure that gets out to you by the end of the week. But Jimmy, thank you so much for joining today. It really was helpful to hear your insights and just how you are running things at YMI Insurance. And thank you all so much for joining the webinar today. If you're new, please go ahead and schedule a demo with us. And we encourage everyone to attend our webinar on April 10th about our newest feature queues.
I'll be there. Thanks so much, Brooke.
Awesome. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day, everyone.